One of the definitions of a closing remarks is to transfer information from the notes of the lecturer to the minds of the lecturee without actually going through anyone's minds. Instead of that, I'd like to go against type a little bit here and do something very different in closing remarks than people usually do. Instead of talking about the summation of what we think we may have learned over the last 24 hours, what I've done is to ask 3 of my colleagues to talk about 3 successful programs that in fact do what we've been talking about. They take their values and they turn them into actions. I asked them each to talk about some of the amazing work that they do. First, I'd like to ask Yocheved Sidof from Lamplighters Yeshiva to help us understand how we can perform to feel it better.
Thank you for this opportunity to share. So one of the values at Lamplighters, which we espouse very dearly, is this idea of giving students the space to really own their learning and their relationship with Hashem. And that if you give students space, if you give them their room, they actually will stand up and deliver. And one example of that at Lamplighters is the story of how the Pintel Shtibel started, the shul at Lamplighters Yeshiva. We have a middle school and a high school, and at the beginning of this academic year, there was talk about what it might look like for them to get together for slichot, Matzah Shabbos, together and daven. And so they were talking about it kind of loosely, and there was a WhatsApp group with parents and the teachers, and they said, we wanted to make it work, but we didn't make it work, maybe next time. And the fathers had told their sons, maybe next time. Well, their sons were not satisfied with that. They had the bug in their head about a minyan together for slichot. So they messaged their Rebbe and they said, Rebbe, if we get the minyan together, will you come and daven with us for slichot? He said, I will be number 10. You come up with 9, I will be number 10. And that's what they did. They came up with 9, they got together for slichot. They said, Rebbe, we want to daven together for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Will you come to a minyan that we put together? And he said, I will be number 10, you put together the minyan. And they did that. And they did that also for the Friday night of Shabbos Shuvah between Slichot and Rosh Hashanah. They got together Friday night, and they had such a beautiful spirited davening. Again, Rabbi Jacobson was number 10. And they said, we don't want to only daven together Friday night, we can daven together Shabbat day. There's no kiddush, there's no fancy shul, there's no Candyman, we still want to daven together. And they showed up the next day and they davened together minyan. And we've had a Shabbat minyan every single Shabbos since then that is run by our students. They shop for the kiddush, they execute it, they take turns being chazan and gabbai. And that ownership and sense of communal responsibility, you be the 9, I'll be the 10, has not only filtered into dynamic Shabbos community now, the Pintel Shtibel, but also has transformed morning prayers at Lamplighters, where there is engagement of the students, there is no grading of davening or tefillah, there is no punitive response at all to anything that happens in that room. In fact, Brett Jacobson shared with me, I told him I feel very humbled and inauthentic representing you here, and I said, what would you like me to share? And what he said was, we have boys who don't like to daven, who try to get through Shema Shema and Esrei very quickly with their tefillin. And we will find even the smallest positive thing, like you pulled in your chair slightly, the smallest positive thing, and we will nurture and we will fan that flame. And he told me the story of one student, I'll end with this, who started off the year not engaged, trying to run through tefillah, and Rabbi Jacobson found that moment to praise him. He gave him an opportunity to be chazan. He stumbled through the davening. He did not feel confident about his Hebrew reading skills. And now, almost at the end of the academic year, he wants to be chazan. At least 2 or 3 times a week, he's vying for that role. And even a newer student that joined the school later in the academic year, who also had a hard time in davening, he's sort of been coaching him to take more initiative and more engagement. And so I think this is just one example that I'm humbled to share about how when we truly make space for student agency and we believe in them, we believe in what they're capable of doing, they will absolutely step up and illuminate our lives.
Second, Rivky Ross from Netivot will share with us about how to teach Judaics very differently.
Today I brought with me the Montessori sevens chain. Us Montessorians, you just cannot stop us from using manipulatives. So the Montessori sevens chain. In Montessori, in early childhood and in lower elementary, we have a color coding system where every number from 1 to 10 is associated with a color, and the color for 7 is white. And you can see here that I have the sevens chain. It is a series of 7 sevens. So every bar on this chain is made up of 7. And we use this even with very young children to do things like sort of impressionistic skip counting. So they're going to look and they're going to say 7 and count on and get to 14 and count on and get to 21. Fun fact, my 7 sevens, if you put them all together, will make up the same thing as this 7's square. So now, impressionistically, I've shown them that 7 times 7 is 7 squared. So, why did I bring a sevens chain today at this time of year? Sfirat HaOmer. So, now there's always somebody in the room at this point who's like, oh, I didn't count Sphira, don't say the number. So I would like to invite someone up who can count Sphira on this chain with me today. Do I have a volunteer who would help me out? And Manette, would you?
I counted.
Great. So then we're not ruining your ability to count today. No. And so today, would you like to tell us what today is? 26. 20.
Oh, tonight's,
Yeah.
26.
Right. And so we are going to count that off on our sevens chain. The way that we would in a classroom. So today we would end up saying something like it is 6 and 20 days, right? Hayom, Shisha, Ve'esrim Yom, Shehem, Shlosha, Shavuot. Can you show me 3 sevens? 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more days.
Yeah.
To the Omer. Thank you. So, why did I want to show you this, of all things? I wanted to talk to you about the value that dictated a decision that we made for our classrooms very early on at Netivot. We wanted to make sure that as one of our core values, we were producing children, cultivating children with a fully synthesized Jewish identity, whole Jewish people who see everything that they learn and everything that they encounter in this world as part of their identity as a Jewish person. Math, science, history, anything in the world, it should be considered part of who they are as a Jew. And so we made a decision that what we were going to do in our classrooms was to always give them access to everything. We did not want to compartmentalize and say, Chumash is at this time, math is in the afternoon. We decided that we were always going to have a full-time Judaic studies teacher and a full-time general studies teacher in the classroom with them all day long. So no matter what they were working with, no matter what they were encountering, it was all part of their experience of Jewish education. And the value that dictated that is we want them to be synthesized. We want them to come out and realize that this is all part of Hashem's creation. This is who I am as a Jew. That value dictated our decision. It was a hard one, only in the sense that it can be a little bit difficult financially to keep 2 head teachers in the classroom plus an assistant and make sure that they're always there, that they can always work together to come up with ways to make math a part of our Jewish experience. And that was the decision that we made that was guided by that value. Thank you.
And third, Amanda Pogany from Luria will open our eyes to report cards without grades.
Will I?
Will you?
I will try. Okay. What do you love about grades? Why do we give grades? Help me. What's the purpose? What's the purpose? It's not hard, just to evaluate. okay? What are we evaluating? We're evaluating what students have learned, right? So we give a grade to communicate to the student, to communicate to the student how much they've learned, okay? What else? So we're using them for feedback, we're saying, right? Okay. What else? I heard this morning in a session, to communicate the importance of something, right? So like if you think that you are, if a subject doesn't get a grade, then the message we're potentially sending is it's not important because it's not getting a grade, right? So if any other reasons?
At the high school level, we need to create or deliver an objective evaluation,
Okay.
Which can be understood by the world of colleges.
Great.
Part academics.
So we're evaluating, we're giving feedback, and we're conveying importance. Anything else? Motivation. Does anyone feel like they use grades for motivating? Getting students to actually do their work and show up and do the things. Okay, and motivation. Great. Okay. So the thing that we think a lot about is how do we give feedback, communicate importance, motivate, and evaluate without grades? And it's possible. It's possible. And for us, the value that's underneath that is the whole child. And what we're thinking about is how do we educate a whole child, right? How do we think about everything we're doing right now and what it's going to do for them as they become a human being? Imagine you're in middle school and you take a math test. And after the math test, the teacher gives it back to you. And as a class, you all grade your own paper. You check it off. You mark what you got right and what you got wrong. And then the teacher says, now, next to the paper, I want you to look at the ones that you got wrong, and I want you to write why you got it wrong, right? Why did you get that one wrong? Was it a careless mistake? Was it something that maybe you actually thought you understood when you learned it, but you didn't understand it? Was it that you never understood it, but you didn't advocate for yourself and ask a question, right? Was it that you didn't really study properly, and you may not even know how to study properly? I want you to take the time next to the ones that you got wrong and write why you got them wrong, okay? Next step. Now I want you to write, what do you need to do differently next time so that if you take this test again, you won't get it wrong? So what could that look like? If it was a careless mistake, what do I need to do differently next time? Check my work better, right? If it was that I never actually understood it in the first place, what do I need to do differently? I need to advocate for myself. I need to ask the teacher in the moment when I don't understand something. If it was that I didn't study properly, I need to reflect on what did I need to do differently in my studying so that I would make sure to remember it on the test. And then you give it into the teacher. And then the teacher looks at it and works with you to redesign what you're going to do for the next math unit. How different is that than if you took a test, you gave it to me, I made a bunch of marks, and then I gave it back to you. And maybe you did well, maybe you didn't do well, but now you're looking at this thing. There's no growth there. There's no opportunity for learning, right? There's no possibility there for teaching a student anything really, right? Yeah, you're communicating how you did, you're giving feedback, right? But you're not creating an opportunity for growth and for learning. This is not nobody should have any grades in their classrooms, although maybe I think that, but we can talk about that later. But you don't have to give it all up, right? And if you were going to give it all up, I would say don't do it quickly, do it slowly, right? Change management, things take time. But there are opportunities even with grading to provide moments to teach kids, right? Imagine something else. I give you a lesson in something, I teach you something new, and I say to you, you're going to practice this every day this week. You're going to work on this every day this week. And I'm giving you the answers to what you're going to work on. It's self-correcting. I'm giving you the answers. Brian had taught me this one, right? I came in and I was like, Montessori is self-correcting. Why wouldn't everyone just look at the back and look at the answers, right? So here's the thing. If I tell you on Monday, this is the first day that you're doing this, so you're going to need to check the answers because you may not know or remember exactly how to do it. Tuesday, you're going to check a little less. By Wednesday or Thursday, I bet you'll be able to do it independently. I have now given you the freedom. I have taken off the pressure. I've given you the freedom to try it out, to fail in the privacy of your own little work, right? To look at the answers if you need them to support you. And on Friday, when you have done it without looking at the answers, who's proud of you? You're proud of you. You are the one that comes running to the teacher and you says, guess what I did? I didn't need to look at the answers. Right? It's not scary. It gives you the space to fail, and it gives you the opportunity to learn when you do fail, what do you do about it? Oh, you try again. You brainstorm a different way to do it. You face a challenge head on and you iterate and you do all of those things all over again. So it's being, right? It's looking towards the future and thinking about we are growing whole children. It is our job right now to say, who are you going to be when you are a grown-up? When you get to high school or when you get to college or afterwards, and you show up and you make a mistake, how are you going to handle that mistake? Are you going to look only for external approval, right? Are you going to look at a challenge head on? You're going to say, oh, I screwed that one up. Let me try again. Because that's what the world demands right now, by the way, right? You mess it up, you iterate, you start again, you brainstorm, you move along, and that's how we move, right? I'm just learning to be that kind of grown-up. Let's make sure that our kids learn it a little bit earlier.
Thank you to all three. That was fantastic. I wanted to make sure to say two things. First of the two things is to thank everyone for being here. Like I had said at the beginning, when you have all the light coherent in one direction, you create a laser. And I can tell you from the incredible avirah that I feel in the room and that I've been feeling for the last 24 hours that we have really created a fantastic moment for everyone here. So thank you. Second, I want to close on an interesting idea. During this time period of Surah in the Torah, there are 9 narratives that are given. The first of those 9 narratives is the idea of the Jewish people being Kodesh, being holy just by being born. The second of those ideas is the idea of the Jewish people being told they're going to tell the story of going out of Egypt for the rest of their days. The third is God fighting the Egyptians for the Jews. The fourth is the bitter waters at Marah, which the Jews are told by God to put a log in order to make it sweet water. The fifth is the mun and the falling of the mun. The sixth is the rock in which Moshe is ordered to hit the rock. The seventh is the fighting of Amalek, which the Jewish people do. The eighth is the creation of court systems, which the Jewish people do. And the ninth is the making themselves Kodesh. This creates a chiasmus. The first four are parallel to the last 4. The first 4 talk about Jews as objects, as the passive ingredient. They're born, they just tell a story, they have God fight for them. In fact, God tells them very famously, Moshe tells them famously, I will fight for you if you be quiet. One of the most famous comments in my mind. The further comment of them finding water. The last 4 are the Jews as subject, as the powerful partners that they're becoming with God. They're the ones who hit the rock. They're the ones who fight Amalek. They're the ones who create the court system. None of those, the last 2, the fighting Amalek and the court system, were not ordered by God. It were things the Jewish people came to. And finally making themselves Kodesh in order to become the ultimate partner with God. The middle turning event that turns them from object to subject is the falling of the mun. And it has 2 pieces in it that are important to think about. Really 3. But the first of those is the idea that when you collect the mun, you are being autonomous. You are going out and collecting what you think your family needs. There is no amount that's given except an omer. And the idea that I don't think they went out with little measuring cups, but it was the amount that you took for your family, took and came back. That is an autonomous behavior that was being trained in the Jewish people. Second, there was trust. Because you can only have the omer up until that night. New mun had to fall the next day. You couldn't keep the mun overnight or else it would become molded or wormy. And then there was the third, the deep reverence and respect that on the day that you were told that you can only keep one of these, you can't keep it overnight, you're given a double portion on Friday, so that on Shabbos, on that day, the day that celebrates creation of the world, you can not exercise that autonomy, but rather exercise your autonomy to be connected to Hashem. Those are the things the Jewish people learned over time. And what we want our students to learn is that connection of autonomy, that development of trust, and the idea of the deep reverence and connection with the divine. I really hope it doesn't take them 40 years in the desert in order to be able to do it. Thank you very much.